guys, right, at long last I've got the right colour paint here. I'm back from my holiday. Let's skip all the chit chat, get on with the job. As we left it last time, everything was primed and ready to go. They've now all been cleaned with tack cloths and degreased and everything else, ready for a bit of blue paint. Okay, so a little tip for you: when it's cold and you're spraying, you never want to spray when it's too cold. I've actually got some heaters on in here. But keep shaking the can. When you've finished, turn the can upside down and just clear the nozzle. Stops it from clogging up, and keep shaking as you go through. That's the first panel with its first coat. I'm not going mental with it, I'll just build it up slowly. Just seen a bit that I've missed. Old steely bugger. I tried to do the edges first. Working on the principle that you don't overspray the bits that have got like a reasonable coat on. That's looking pretty damn good. Hang this bit up to dry and go and get the other one. Okay, so here's the next panel, and you can see cable ties make really good hangers. This one I haven't rubbed yet. Basically what I do is just give it a very light dry sand just to get the worst of the, you can just, should be able to hear that, and all it is really is when you're looking at the surface, if you can imagine that's the surface and it should be nice and flat like this, what you've actually got is peaks and troughs of the paint, and all you do is just knock the tops off so that it's nice and smooth, and then when you put the top coat over and you give that the first sand, you don't get dots of different colours coming through from the primer. This is a little bit of 2000 grit, so it's pretty fine, and it's literally just go over it and just literally flatten the peaks. Don't worry about trying to get rid of the troughs. Just give it a smoother finish, but you've still got something to key against. Gives you a better finish in the end. There we go. Let me give that a quick squirt of the cleaner. Which will also degrease it, because I run out of tack cloths. Thought I had loads, didn't have. And for those of you that don't know what a tack cloth is, it would take, once it's been cleaned, a tack cloth will take all the grip and little imperfections of dust and everything out of the way. Right, so we'll turn this one round so I can do the awkward parts first. Another little tip for when it's cold is actually just warm your can slightly, and that will help thin the paint at the bottom. And that's the second panel with its first coat. Now this paint dries to a matte finish, so you should be able to tell once the sheen's gone that it's, I would say, touch dry, but I'm gonna give it a good hour between coats. I've given this one a slightly thicker base coat than I intended, simply for the fact that I've got poor lighting in there and I should have turned some extra lighting on, but it should be okay. Once that's dried, they'll both get at least 2 more coats, possibly 3 or 4 more coats, depending on temperature conditions, dampness, time and everything else. Once this is dried, you knock it back very, very slightly, and then you put your clear coat over the top, which will give it the shine. Okay, so here's another little tip for you. If you don't have proper spray booth or anything, I'm just using my workbench. To avoid spraying everything else in here, as I did with the primer, just put a couple of black bags up, instant spray booth. Also, even if you've got ventilation, make sure you cover your bike, because all the spray that's in the air comes down, lands on your bike and looks shite. Okay, so we're back. It's had 6 or 7 coats of the blue paint. I've lost count now. So it's got a real good layer of that on it. Everything's been rubbed back very, very slightly between each layer, and now it's time to put on the first of the clear coats. It's amazing what a bit of clear coat does. It's changed the colour, it's made it 2 or 3 shades lighter, which was my primary concern. And when I first did it, it looked pretty dark, and I thought I'd had the wrong colour sent to me a second time. That's all that's getting. The key word here is patience. You put on too much too quick, you'll get runs. And I don't mean the runs. And that's all that one's getting. Okay, so we're now layering up the clear coat. Get off, you bastard. Lucky that bit was still dry. That was a close call, but we got away with it. That's the final coat that I'm going to put on. That's now had 3 coats of primer, possibly 4, but I think 3. 7 coats of the blue, and now 5 coats of clear. That's I think that's the point where I need to stop before I do more harm than good. That's the final coat for that piece now as well. So again, that's had the same amount of coats as the other side. So there we go. End product. I could probably get rid of a little bit of the orange peels on there. There's not a huge amount, but very, very slightly orange peely. And if I wanted to get rid of it, then it would just be a case of a very, very light sand with some 2000 wet and dry, very wet, and then just give it a quick buff up. But I'm quite happy to leave that as it is for the moment. It needs to be properly hard before I do that. I just haven't got that. It's the wrong time of year, so maybe when it starts to warm up again in the spring and I get it nice and hard, then I'll whip them off and just do it then. But for now, I'm quite happy with that. This is the other side. Now I've just found on the first side that I filmed that although it is touch dry, it's not properly hard. So I'm going to give them another 24 hours before I fit them on the bike. But that looks pretty blemish free. This one's actually got less orange peel on it than the other one, and if they were both this good I wouldn't bother at all with trying to get rid of it. But I think the other one's literally got just that little bit too much, but it's certainly 100 million times better than what it was before. Well, there you go. That's it back in place. It's a pretty good colour match between the two. I don't think I'm going to get it much better than that. A couple of little fingerprints on it, but they will come out as it hardens up and dries. It's just where I was putting it on, having to hold it. But as you can see, it looks pretty damn good. Very happy. That's the second side. You see there's a few blemishes on the upper plastics on that, and they weren't there when I took it apart. And we'll go away on holiday and somebody's been in the garage to get something and they've caught the bike, so there'll be some more touch-ups coming, I suspect.